Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Welcome to Red Storm Chasers. I'm Vincent here with Tim and Nick. On this episode, we'll look back at the wins against Wagner and New Mexico, and we'll look ahead to our trip to Bahamas in the Bahamas, where we'll actually play 3 games because we'll add an additional game onto that end. But Tim and Nick, good to be on with you.
Very good to be on, especially after Sunday, where we looked very impressive against New Mexico.
Absolutely a must-win game, and looking back now that we won it, it's probably not a must-win game, but certainly after last year, there was all the hype for the Michigan game at the Garden first game, and then we threw up a clunker, and avoiding that this first Garden game against a good New Mexico team. I mean, they won the Mountain West last year, projected to be a good team again this year, so getting that win is our first big win of the year, first real win of the year, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I always love getting into the Garden, especially the first game of the year. Just go daily burger, have a beer, watch the intro, see some fire.
That's it. St. John's basketball underway. Well, all right, it's time for our starting 5 for the week. This week, it's going to be our 5 favorite rivalries, or your 5 favorite rivalries, as we go one by one. Tim, we'll start with you. Who are your 5 favorite rivals of St. John's?
My starting 5 for my personal rivalries for St. John's would be Syracuse, Nova, Providence, Butler, and then Forum at the end, which is more just personally for me with the damn Ram.
Because you hate the Ram. It's really all about the Ram there.
The Ram is my chicken from Family Guy.
Wait, can you run it back for a second? Why do you hate Butler, or not hate Butler? Why is that one of your favorite rivalries?
I mean, Butler's always been a thorn in our side for playing an away game. Every time we go to Hinkle, it's always a problem. So it doesn't matter if they're good, then it just becomes a worrisome game for our schedule each and every time.
Yeah, I think that's a fair rivalry. I mean, it's kind of an interesting one because they haven't always been the best. But I think you are right. For us, it has always been a problem playing in Hinkle. So I think that's a good list. I think that's a fair list. Nick, who are your favorite 5 rivals of St. John's?
So I'm going to go with, like Tim, I'm going to go with Syracuse, obviously number 1. Most public enemy number 1 for sure. Then I'm going to go with Georgetown because, I'm a history guy and they're our classic rival. So, and, I was there when Mullen was coach. So, and Ewing was the coach for Georgetown. So it got revitalized in a sense. My third one is Providence because, their fans are kind of annoying. They're close
Very
to
annoying.
us. And, I wasn't a huge fan of Ed Cooley. I'm still not a huge fan of Ed Cooley, especially after what he did to them. It makes me like them a little bit more now that he's gone, honestly. But I would say they're my third. My fourth, I would say, is Duke.
That's a good one.
When we were growing up, when I was growing up, we played Duke a lot more. We used to play
we used to play all the time.
And even, we beat Duke when I was there. So that was also, we lost to them also when I was there. But, so I like that. I enjoy that rivalry. I also hate their fans too, and I'm not a big fan of Duke. And my 5th and final has got to be Niagara.
Our sister school.
Our sister school from the north.
I only know that because you tell us every time.
Yeah, we actually, so out of all the New York schools, we have the most meetings against them. We've played them 101 times. The second is Tim's most hated rival, Fordham.
Wow.
91 times. So we've played 10 more times. It's very interesting.
We are winning the rivalry, right?
Oh, yeah, we're winning the rivalry 74-27.
Good.
So,
good. We wouldn't want to be losing that one. I do like the Duke one, though. I think that's a good addition to the list.
Yeah.
And a bit more, not a traditional, if you will, like in Big East rivalry, but a good rivalry. Yeah. We did have some great games against them. Marcus Hatton comes to mind, obviously. Beating them there, winning at Cameron. Just some great memories in that rivalry. Obviously, some major defeats in that rivalry. Losing Coach K's 1,000th win at the Garden was painful. Also was stolen from us with the inadvertent whistle. We won't forget that. Yeah, it's a good one, Nick. I like that. All right, so my 5. I agree. Syracuse. Not much to say about them. They suck. We hate them. Seton Hall. That's a rivalry. Particularly since I went to Seton Hall. That's a rivalry for me. That is, and certainly has been spicy in the past few years. Obviously, this year going to be again spicy with Kadari Richmond switching sides. We had, Wusu switch sides last time, but this time we got Richmond on our side. So that should be an interesting one.
Even going back to like my freshman year, 2014-15, we got in a fight with them on the
Absolutely, yeah.
It was like with Deron. Actually, no, I'm sorry. That was 15-16 with Deron Johnson and all them.
No, we got in a fight with Justin Burrell and Steve Lavin. Got in a fight that was when I was in school. That was before you were the manager.
Yeah,
I was in college at the time. So
you just love.
Yeah, we were ranked, weren't we? And we went to the Rock, and
I think so, and we lost.
At the end.
I like that rivalry. It's a fun rivalry because it is, two very close teams. Villanova, I like that rivalry more that we've started winning more often. That's been certainly moved into our favor. I have UConn on the list, mainly because they're kind of a historic rivalry from the old Big East. Sure. I think they could be a new rival for us to kind of regain our rivalry with them, unfortunately, because we let them back in the league. But it's a rivalry I would like to see us win more. And then my last one, I went a little outside the box. I went with Ed Cooley because I hate him. And I've now, the rivalry with him we had at Providence has continued over to Georgetown. I think we still have a rivalry against him, thinking that he, owns Madison Square Garden and all that stuff where, obviously Chris Mullen almost got in a fight with him. And the hate for him that you talked about, Nick, with Providence specifically, I just attribute right to him. So
I couldn't agree.
He's my fifth rival, just him alone.
It's funny. I actually have both of his teams, Georgetown and Providence.
Yeah, you just looped him out. I just picked. I singled him out. All right, so that's our starting five for the week. Our 5 rivals. Let us know on Twitter and Instagram. What are your 5 favorite rivals for St. John's? And hopefully your lists are similar to ours. But anybody comes up with a real wild one, we'll give you a shout out. But all right, let's look back at another fantastic week to start this 24-25 season. 2-win week, a win against Wagner, which was as expected, and then a win against New Mexico. Obviously that big game in Madison Square Garden we talked about. Touch on Wagner a little bit, 66-45 win. Didn't look great in the first half. Not exactly.
Not at all.
This was a team where we talked about last week. Yeah, this was a layup game, another cupcake. They had only ever beaten us twice. And in the first half, all of a sudden it was like, whoa, this is not how the script was supposed to go. I mean, we were winning at halftime, so it wasn't the end of the world, but there were moments where we did not look good, and they were ahead, kind of, I mean, not ahead, but they stuck around much longer than they should have, to be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We looked defensively, we looked absolutely great, and I mean, really the whole game, but especially the first half. We just completely lacked offense in the first half, even really lingering into the first half of the second half.
Right, the first half of the second half.
First half, I'm sorry, yeah, I tripped my words there a little bit. First half of the second half, it just sounds weird. But thank God they can't shoot the ball well. They didn't shoot the ball well, at least.
Yeah, I mean, we held them to 29% from the field and 20% from three. Like you talked about, Nick, that was partly because of our great defense. I'm sure they also probably just don't shoot that well, but us playing strong defense, holding them that low did allow us to win. I mean, we won by 21 points, so in the second half we did really run away with it. Although actually, you look at the half by half score, we outscored them 31-22 in the first half and only 35-23 in the second half. So kind of interesting to see that we kind of, as much as it looked like
up a little bit.
Yeah, it looked like the first half we kind of struggled, in the second half we played well. And we did, and that's true, but the numbers don't necessarily show that. We shot 50% from the field, 35% from three. We out-rebounded them, thankfully, 36-30, a little closer than I would have liked.
Yeah, I mean, it was that 17-0 run in the last 10 minutes of the game that really just opened everything up.
Yeah, absolutely. That 17-0 run, like when it happened, you were like, this is what we've been waiting for the whole time. And then it finally happened. You're like, all right, we can breathe a little bit. And then obviously we were in control after that point. So
one thing we do have to talk about is the starting lineup. Very different this game. And, Coach Pitino talked about how he was trying something out, trying a little different look. Brady Dunlap hit the starting lineup. Aaron Scott, Simeon Wilcher. Aaron Scott, actually good game for him, 11 points. Davon Smith started, and Iwachuku got the start. He only played 8 minutes, but kind of a different mix of a lineup. And we only had 2 guys score double digits. Aaron Scott, like I talked about, 4 of 8 from the field. He had a good game. And then RJ Lewis had 13 points. He was 3 of 5, 7 free throws, 7 for 12 from the line for RJ. So it's kind of a different mix of a game than we had seen. And I think that may have also attributed to why the first half certainly didn't feel like we were in control. But at the end of the day, it's a 21-point win. We walk away happy, and we walk away from Wagner and into our first Madison Square Garden game against the New Mexico Lobos and come out with a victory, 85-71 in the Richard versus Rick Pitino matchup. This game was an interesting one, I would say, because we were always in control, which is not something we're necessarily used to.
Yeah.
But
Probably
you
the first
kind
time
of
I've ever heard that in my life.
yeah, right. You just got the sense that St. John's was always gonna get there. And even when it got close in the second half, it got as close as 4. Then Scott hits the 3, bang, back up to 7, and then from there it's a pull away, right? So it was weird to feel this because this is not something we're accustomed to here at St. John's. But
I could tell you, I didn't really feel like I was in control the entire time, even though we were in control the entire time. It felt like at any second. I mean, that's probably just my my St. John's bias seeping through my veins, but every second they had the ball, I was like, oh my God, they're gonna start. It's gonna happen now. It's gonna happen now. It's gonna happen now.
I think that's really just the St. John's fans in us because objectively watching this game, I kind of from an outsider perspective, I tried to look at the numbers to view it that way. And if you look at it, this is kind of a no doubter. We're up 40-29 at halftime. Now we only outscored them 45-42 in the second half, but again, you're coming in with an 11-point lead into the second half, and you outscore them by any amount, you're going to win the game, right? So it's interesting. I just try to take a different approach looking at it.
Well, a little 5-point flip play at the end of the first half, really
huge.
Yeah.
I mean that really solidified. I mean that gave us the 11-point lead at half, which did stop their momentum. They were picking up a little momentum there towards the end of the first half, but we knocked that away and instead went in with a momentum of our own and pulled away. Just to give you some numbers, 50% from the field for us. We did not shoot well from 3, though. 22%. This is a poor performance from the 3-point line.
You can't be shooting like this.
No, absolutely not. Also, kind of a weird. I keep saying weird, but it's we had 5 players in double digits. It was the 5 starters. It was Zuby, Aaron Scott, R.J. Lewis, Kadari Richmond, and Davon Smith. Besides that, the entire rest of the bench only scored 8 points, and only 3 people played.
Yeah, so every starter played 33 minutes or more, or 34 minutes or more. No,
which is not typical of a Rick Pitino team. Normally, he's bringing guys in and out constantly. I mean, we've seen it last year. We saw it even earlier this season where we're constantly rotating guys. And Brady Dunlap had a great game, just last week. He only saw 7 minutes in this game. Never even took a 3-pointer. Wiltshire only played 14 minutes, and he was 2 of 4. Yeah. I like that we're rotating guys and we're changing things, but sometimes it makes you wonder, like, what happened here? Why did these guys, like, why did this happen? At the end of the day, it was a recipe for success, though, so you can't question it too much.
Well, I agree, but also at the same time, I'm just, I do kind of like having, saying 8 people in a game. If we want to rock with our 8, we got a really tight 8, and I do like our 8, by the way. Ruben Prey, Brady Dunlap, and Simeon Wiltshire coming off the bench is pretty phenomenal. Especially like Brady Dunlap and Simeon Wiltshire are high energy guys that can bang a lot of shots, and all of a sudden, like, it would, you know what I mean? And like, I don't say, you know what I mean? I'm just gonna cut that out. They're high energy guys. They just, they're spark plugs off the bench. Well, no, I'm not going to say that either. I'm just going to say with the tight 8.
Oh, it's a real gym rat.
No, I'm not going to say that.
Is he white? He's not white. He's not white, too.
Wait, what?
Well, you can be a gym rat and not be white.
That's not true.
Yeah, you can.
No, that's how you racial profile guys on television.
Nah,
if he's a real gym rat, he's white.
No, he's athletic. He's real athletic.
If he's athletic, he's black. See, Ruben Prey, he's athletic. Leftist Laptopoulos, he's a gym rat.
Yeah.
I don't completely disagree with it. I mean, having a tight 8 lineup is good, especially considering the 8 we're looking at, right? It is interesting to see like guys that you would think would stretch the floor a little bit. Brady Dunlap. I thought Simeon was going to start basically every game.
Yeah.
A little surprised that he didn't, but these are guys who can shoot the 3 well. spread the floor out well, open it up for the bigs and everything. Not seeing a lot of the court time. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's and against a good team, right? Like New Mexico's a real matchup. This is a team who went to the tournament last year, probably going to go to the tournament again this year. So this is similar to what we're going to look forward to, particularly this coming week. So I wonder how Rick's going to rotate guys, and again, it's still early in the season. Maybe he's just trying to see what his plan is for a Baylor, like we have coming up. But I thought that was interesting. As I said, all 5 starters were in double digits.
Also, just Vince didn't play at all.
Yeah, did not even
play a minute. Like,
which
I don't know.
Yeah, was a precursor to that. The only 8 minutes, and then I also think that was more of a matchup thing.
Yeah, we got to give Zuby some help. I mean, yes, Ruben Prey obviously gives him some help, but he's.
I thought he would have been good against. I thought he would have matched up a little well against Nelly Jr. Joseph. I mean, Nelly's faster for sure, but
I mean, I think in the next couple games, as long as Jane Glover still continues to get healthy, I think we'll start to see him at least by Harvard.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think he's going to get involved. I mean, we're going to need somebody besides just Zuby, because like we talked about last time, Zuby looked good in this game. 13 points for him, 10 rebounds, a nice double-double. But he hasn't always looked great all this year. By the way, 2 guys had double-doubles. Zuby, as we said, and RJ Lewis really stepped out. 21 points, 11 rebounds for him. 8 of 18 from the field.
Yeah.
So, yes, you'd like to see a little more depth in our front court, though. And it's not that Ruben Prey doesn't necessarily give us that. It's just he's not. I'm not sure he's the guy we should turn to as a secondary choice.
We did see Kadari out of nowhere. He definitely looked gassed during that second half, and then out of nowhere it was just a second wind kicked in and he started going.
I mean, yeah, I think that's the beauty of having a guy like Kadari Richmond, right? He's a guy who has that second win and can just turn it up and turn it on whenever he wants to, and he certainly did that in this game, and thank goodness he did because it helped lead us to victory.
I will say this though about Kadari Richmond. They must have had an incredible scout on him because every time he put the floor on the first dribble on the deck, they swatted at it. He had 7 turnovers.
Yeah,
I remember watching it. Like we were at the game, and like every time that he did that first dribble or he would come off a screen, immediately as soon as the ball can't hit the ground on the way back up, they would swipe it from him. They must have scouted it specifically, and they did it like to a team.
Richard Pitino definitely had that scout, just like Mark Pope had the Cooper Flag spin move. Scouted exactly the same way.
Yeah, I mean, like it's scary to see him have 7 turnovers. But then you like Tim said, you see him light that second fire, and it's like, well, if that's the trade-off, I think I might take it. But he certainly does have to clean that up. He can't be having 7 turnovers, particularly in the Big East. Once we get the Big East play, which I know he's accustomed to being from Seton Hall, but still.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the Spotlight Player of the Week. A little interesting one this week, although I think I know who it's going to be already. Tim, we will start with you. Who's your vote for the Spotlight Player of the Week?
Well, I mean, just like my mail-in vote definitely counted.
It did. Unfortunately, it didn't win anything.
Nope, just like last time. So, RJ, definitely getting it. Once again, he's honoring back-to-back weeks. The guy plays like he's a racehorse with blinders on at times, but
yeah,
hey, the guy can score.
He certainly can, and I think that's another spot where you're making a little bit of a trade-off. He's going to shoot too many times, but he's probably going to make more than he should, so he'll take it. Nick, who is your vote?
Man, there was a couple of times in that New Mexico game where RJ Lewis got the ball, and you were like, he's gonna shoot this no matter what. Sorry, I just wanted to say that. I'm actually gonna go with Aaron Scott.
Ooh, all right.
He had 2 great games this week. He scored 11 in the game against Wagner, and he scored 14 against New Mexico. He shot 50% in both games. And in the New Mexico game, when they cut the lead to 4 and he banged that 3, it was momentum changing. It really, I mean, it set us off to go on a big run, and it set us off to win the game definitively.
Nick, I am going to join you in the Aaron Scott vote. I think.
Wow.
11 points against Wagner. He was the only guy who started and had double digits there. And then, like you said, for me, it was that momentum building 3 that secured the victory, right? We were at a point, we've seen it time and time again in St. John's where, the avalanche is coming and we're falling and we're going to get swallowed up by it. But he was the guy in the New Mexico game, bangs the three, stops the avalanche, and propels us to finish that game with the momentum we had. That's why I got to give him the Spotlight Player of the Week, because I think, listen, RJ had 2 great games. There's no doubt. But you kind of expect a little bit more of that from RJ. I think Aaron Scott was a bit of a surprise, and because of the huge momentum 3 for me, made him the Spotlight Player of the Week. So 2-1. Aaron Scott, congratulations, Spotlight Player of the Week. All right, now we look ahead to Paradise, quite frankly. The Bahamas tournament coming up this Friday is our first game on CBS Sports Network at 7 p.m. We've got the biggest matchup of our non-conference season so far. Not
Since
necessarily
1999.
True. Not even necessarily the biggest matchup this year, possibly, but we'll get to that in a minute. 13 Baylor coming in at 3-1. Their only loss is to Gonzaga, currently number 3 in the country.
So Rico Gather's matchup.
There you go. That's very true.
The Rico Gather's revenge game.
This is the first game of the tournament. There's 4 teams in the tournament: Virginia, Tennessee, the other game. We will play either the winner or the loser, depending on our results. Obviously, we're hoping for a win, and we're kind of hoping for Tennessee because they're 11 in the country, so a better game would help us. But Baylor is the only matchup that's guaranteed in terms of who we know we're going to play. So it's a heavy lift. I mean, they started the season ranked 8th. They lost that game to Gonzaga. They've remained ranked, though. Obviously, still 13 coming into this game. They're led by Norchad Omier, who was a Miami transfer, kind of flirted with us in the offseason, and then went to Baylor instead. He averages a double-double, 13 points, 10 rebounds. He's a forward. He's a problem. I mean, he's going to be a big part of what our defensive scheme needs to stop. But they're a good team. They've got 5 guys who average double digits. So it's not a scenario where if you stop Omier, you can, you're good to go. You've got to make sure your whole defense is in there.
Omier and Jeremy Roach are both preseason All Big 12 second team. Jeremy Roach, coming from Duke, played pretty well at Duke too.
Yeah, he's an interesting transfer guy. He was a 3-year starter for Duke. Yeah, put up really good numbers. He played a lot of minutes, averaged 14 last year, 13 the year before. But he got that extra year because of COVID, so he took it and decided to go to Baylor. And he continued to play well, right? So they are a multi-headed monster when it comes to their offense. For us, that's okay because our defense has been very good. If our defense can continue to play really well, we offensively we've shown we can shoot, we can play, we can score with the best of them, at least in a Rick Pitino style. Obviously not this season, right. But you're looking at if our defense can play like it played against Wagner, obviously a much more talented opponent. So extrapolate the comparison there. If it can play in that kind of style, I think we put ourselves in a really good place. If it shows up like it did against New Mexico, we could struggle, right? We could be in a scenario where we're in a tight matchup or maybe losing in the second half there and trying to make a comeback.
I think
we're gonna have to stop Jalen Nunn. He's a 3-point specialist, and he's gonna be playing in a small gymnasium. That's the perfect thing for a great shooter.
Yeah, yes and no. The Bahamas is a ballroom, so that's always a little funky for shooters because the ceiling is very low compared to an arena.
Yeah, but the depth is better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Whenever you're talking about going into a new environment, a new arena, right? It's always different. Whether it's everybody, it's kind of like the Hinkle effect, right? It's shorter on the one side, so it's kind of depth perception wise. It matters place by place.
Yeah,
it's a little bit.
Very true.
I think the ballroom tends to mess with people a bit more.
But I think so. It's funny. If we weren't ranked, I would say that we could even try to steal a game from them, like in a trap sense, where they're like, "Oh man, we're not going to worry about St. John's because we're going to be on to Tennessee next, right?"
Right.
But now that we're ranked, it's kind of hard to say that. So we're not going to really sneak up on them. But hey,
it's really nice that we can still say that. Just a nugget. Really nice that we get to say we're ranked, so we can't sneak anyway. We did remain 22 in the country. Sorry, we didn't. Didn't drop the. We didn't move anywhere, which is a little surprising to be honest. I thought the New Mexico win might give us a little bit of a bump.
but
Yeah.
not enough losses ahead of us that really mattered.
No respect for the
Right.
Mountain West is more my opinion of why that happened.
Yeah. Going back to the Baylor game, though, I think one of the key things is going to be that we limit our turnovers. In the last couple games, even against Wagner, we had 15 turnovers. Against New Mexico, we had 16 turnovers. If we have that many turnovers against a good Baylor team, they're going to capitalize on our mistakes, and we're going to lose, and we're not going to be able to play Tennessee in the second round.
Yeah, so looking ahead, obviously, like we talked about, if you win or lose, depending on the other matchup, Virginia, Tennessee, you'll play whoever they are. Virginia, listen, coming into the season,
Had some
Virginia
promise.
was seen as being the Virginia of old, but Tony Bennett kind of bailed on them last minute. They were picked to finish fifth in the ACC. They have started the season 3-0 with a win against Villanova. They would be a good non-conference opponent, in we would certainly get credit for beating them. But
Yeah.
my hope is we don't have to play them, because our hope is we beat Baylor and we get to play Tennessee, because then that's a real matchup. But give you a little breakdown, talk about Virginia. Like I said, 3-0 to start the year. They're led by Isaac McNeely. He leads them with 16 points a game, but Jacob Kofi is kind of their big problem. He's 13 points a game, 7 rebounds. He's a big guy. He can shoot the three too. He's kind of a guy who we're going to have to really take care of if we end up playing the Cavaliers.
Yeah, absolutely. And they just played Villanova, actually, and they beat them by 10. And McNeely in that game had 23 points, went 8 from 9 from the field. And Kofi went off the bench. He had 12 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, 1 steal. 4 of 10, not as good as usual, but 2 from 7 from 3. That's pretty good for a 6'10" freshman.
Yeah, he's a young guy, so he's not, like the traditional 4-year kind of this is their star, but he's a guy who's kind of, we always have that guy against us. He's the guy I could see being that guy against us if we have to play Virginia, just to keep an eye out for. So, but again, it's always interesting when you lose your coach right before the year, kind of how is things going to go, and seemingly they're off to a good start. So
Yeah,
you never know. They could get Tennessee. They could beat Tennessee, I'm saying, and
that
get
could
to
be
the
a
next
trap.
round.
That's more likely of a trap game.
That's more of a trap game, certainly, than our game.
Baylor or us. They're looking at we're playing a ranked opponent next round, and then we're playing Virginia, who just lost their head coach. I
Right?
can
Yeah,
very well see that.
that's a very good point. Well, obviously, like we said, hopefully we win, and hopefully we then play Tennessee. Tennessee coming in 11 in the country. That would then be our best non-conference game of the year.
Yeah. I
But
guess it depends how it shakes out at the end between Baylor and Tennessee.
yeah, I mean, it depends on the end. But I'm just talking about in terms of rank and in terms of reputation. I mean, listen, Tennessee is coming into the year. Everyone expects them to be a top 10 team. Everyone expected that of Baylor too, but with the Gonzaga matchup, they knew they were going to fall. Anyway, Zuki Ziegler is the name you're going to hear a lot when we play the Volunteers, hopefully in the second round. He averages 15 points a game and almost 8 assists. He's their court commander. So, and he plays that role very well. He shoots the three well as well. First team All SEC from Long Island. So it would have been nice to see him in the old St. John's Red, but too bad. We missed our chance there.
Ball out again. That's because he's from Long Island.
Yeah, I mean, the New York guys tend to do that against us. So let's hope, because it's in Bahamas, we're in a different country. Maybe that doesn't apply.
True. You're not playing in the Garden.
Exactly. Let's hope, we've removed you from the complete country. Hopefully, by doing that, they don't get the New York, bounce against us. But he's the guy who's going to lead that team as the point guard. Another name to keep an eye out for is Igor Milicic Jr. He's their big man, 14 points a game, 6 rebounds a game. Juby really going to have his work cut out for him because they also have Felix Okpara, who leads the team in rebounds and blocks. So 2 big men for them really could give us some trouble because of our lack of depth, in my opinion, in our front court.
Hopefully Vince can come back in and help Zuby out a little bit in rotation. And everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vince and Ruben certainly going to get some playing time if we were to play Tennessee.
Right. Well, yeah. Hopefully they get some playing time, regardless of if we're playing Tennessee or not. But
I mean, that's true. I'm just saying, particularly in this game, this is a game where we're going to need them a little more than we've relied on them in the past, because it is really double trouble down there, and you can't just leave Zuby on an island. Because as good as Zuby is, I mean, he's not Joel Soriano, right? Who we could previously left on an island, and he did very well. Zuby is still early in the season. Zuby's going to be great, but he could use some help down there.
He certainly will. Maybe we'll go with an all guard set. Maybe try to run him out the gym.
That could be an interesting approach.
Coutinho has gone to that set a couple times. Even he went to it at one point against New Mexico.
Yeah, and we can be successful. I mean, we've got a ton of great guards, right? If you run that set out there, they've got to go small because they can't keep up.
Right.
I think that may be a good approach against a team like Tennessee. I don't know if that works as well against like Baylor in our first matchup.
I would agree with that.
I think
they want to play that kind of game.
That's the thing. They're a fast-paced team, so they'll have no trouble keeping up. I think against Baylor, we're not going to look to slow it down, but at times we are. We're going to try to take the air out of the ball. Yeah, because they run a fast pace, and I don't know that we can keep up with their fast pace.
Not yet. Maybe if it was later on in the season. We're still, hey, we're only 4 games together when you think about it.
Right, exactly. So this is a real early test and a tough test. It could be back-to-back. Hopefully it is back-to-back tough tests. But I do like that idea, Nick, of going small against Tennessee if we get there.
When we get there.
When we get there. I like that attitude, Nick. Positivity all the way. So we also snuck in another Bahamas game because why not, right?
I love that.
I mean, we're down there. Might as well play some other teams who are down there. Georgia happens to be playing in the Atlantis tournament that we played in, Nick, when you were there. So they're going to come over, and we're actually going to go over to them and play in Atlantis as well. So we kind of get a double dose of the Bahamas. So this team's just taking a whole week in the Bahamas. Good for them.
Yeah, suppose. So I will say this though about the Battle of Atlantis when I was there. It's a very nice place, a very nice tournament, all of that. If you lose and you get on a loser bracket and then you lose again and you get on the latest times, it is the worst experience.
Yeah.
Because as a team too, because you have the last game of the day, so like you can't do anything, right?
Right, you're just waiting around all day.
If you win, you get the early games, and then you can you gotta eat, you gotta scout, you gotta do all this, but you can kind of hang by the pool, you can kind of do all this. When you're in the last game, you have a game coming up, so you really can't you can't be by the pool all day because you'd be lethargic. You can't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Walk through, you have everything. It's not as fun when you don't win in a tournament.
No, certainly, and so that's that is rough. It's similarly timed. The Baja Mar tournament with our game's at 7 on Thursday. The next game's at 9:30. Same pattern on Friday. Really, even if you're the first game, you're getting done at 7. Your first game's at 7 o'clock, so you're not getting done until 9. I mean, you really get no time there. And then we added ourselves a triple header. The Georgia matchup is on Sunday, so there's a day off in between. But still, playing 3 games in 4 days is tough. I mean, that's a tough trek for these guys who, listen, we did have a lot of time off from Sunday, obviously, to Thursday. But this is our first real back-to-back-to-back. And I think Rick did it with the idea of, listen, in the NCAA tournament, there's no breaks. We play back-to-back. In the Big East tournament, there's no breaks. You got to get used to playing back-to-back, playing good teams back-to-back. And I think that's part of the scheduling.
It'll certainly be a good test for our guys to, one, mesh together, because trips like that are great places for everybody to mesh together. You got nobody but yourselves. I mean, you're with other teams and everything. Some guys might know some other people and hang out with them, but generally you're just with your team the entire time, which is good because you build a real bond that way. It's also good that, we have the day off on Saturday, so we'll finish our tournament and then we'll get, we'll sleep on that night, whatever. And then probably Saturday, maybe early Sunday, we'll get a shoot around opportunity where we've kind of forgotten, hopefully, about the Baja Mar gym and have now turned our hey, we're used to going from MSG to Carnesecca Arena.
All right, well, I would say we probably more than not any other team in the country necessarily, but then most other teams play at different arenas more frequently, right? I mean, there's not as many. I mean, there's Big East schools that do it. Where like Villanova plays at the Pavilion, they also play at Wells Fargo, but there's not. Seton Hall does it too, but Seton Hall only does one game, and most other schools outside of the Northeast don't ever do, or outside of big cities, I would say, not even Northeast, but they don't ever do it. You know what I mean? Like Duke never doesn't play at Cameron Arena when they play home games.
Honestly, other than like the Big East Conference, I can't think of a real good example from another.
I was thinking the same thing. Like I can't really think of anybody. I mean, there may be a West Coast team I can't think of, or somebody else. But at most of the major conference schools, they have their arena on campus.
Well, especially because a lot of them, especially you're talking about SEC, Big 10, Big 12,
Right.
ACC, Pac-12, they're all big state schools or
Right.
big private
Big money
universities
schools.
that have big money schools, big area. They just say, we'll have a football field and a football stadium, and we'll have a basketball arena. You know what I mean? On campus, we don't have to go to a bigger arena.
Yeah. So we may be more accustomed to it than everybody else.
It's true. You want to go way back in the history of time. It absolutely has to do everything with the fact of us being in the Big East Conference. That was
absolutely.
Cities playing at these big arenas to draw kids back in the 80s and 85 and everything like that.
Yeah.
That's actually really crazy.
I want so maybe it doesn't affect us now. Obviously, the kids are very different than the university, right? I mean, the kids on the team all haven't had that experience yet, but some of them have. I mean, RJ Lewis has, right? So some of the guys have. Anyway, the third game this week, Sunday, Georgia at Atlantis, 11 a.m. on CBS Sports Network. It's an early one because the Bahamas is an hour ahead. Georgia 4-0 this year. The SEC, sneaky good basketball conference. I mean, obviously we talked about Tennessee, but they're a conference who tends to not get as much respect, or at least previously hadn't got as much respect now. But they're a good matchup. They're going to play Marquette in that Atlantis tournament before they play us. So hopefully Marquette can beat them. Root for our Big East brethren.
Big East teams back to back.
It is kind of funny. Yeah, it is. They actually play Notre Dame one game later. So like an old historic Big East. They got 3 Big East teams on their schedule there. But anyway, they also 11 a.m. back-to-back games. They play us back-to-back, by the way. They play Marquette on Saturday and us on Sunday, both at 11 a.m. So interesting, much more of a time crunch for them.
Marquette's not in. Are they in the Bahamas tournament? I mean, I'm sorry.
They're in Atlanta.
Is that the beginning of their tournament?
No, it has to be the end.
Well, then how do they have the game set already?
I have no idea.
No, Marquette must.
Maybe they're not part of Atlantis. You know what, Nick? I'll do you one better. Neither of these teams are in the Atlantis battle for Atlantis.
What?
This Marquette Georgia game is just a game in Atlantis. That's all it is.
What do you mean?
It's just part of it. It's just part of a game. It's just a game in Atlantis. That's it. That's why they picked up the game against us. Because they were like, we're going all the way to the Bahamas. Might as well play 2 teams.
They flew it all the way down to the Bahamas with didn't we schedule them this year?
That's yeah. Mm-hmm. We did.
How?
I think it's an interesting scheduling thing for them, but even a little bit more interesting for Marquette. They played Purdue on Tuesday, and then they fly to the Bahamas to play Georgia on Saturday. Then they fly back to Milwaukee and play Stonehill on Wednesday.
What are we talking about? How are they?
So for us, by the way, it's great. We're gonna have been in the Bahamas for days.
Yeah, they'll be. Well, I mean, they'll have been there for one day, but they're going games back to back days. I mean, they're doing it tournament style, I guess, on their own. That's crazy. How did they get this approved?
Well, I mean, it's Georgia. They got a lot of money.
I get, yeah.
Might as well. I mean, for Georgia, they're not traveling. Georgia has a Tuesday game. Then they play Marquette on Saturday. They play us on Sunday. Then they fly back to Atlanta or back to Athens to play on Saturday. So they have a whole week between us and their next game.
I guess that's crazy.
It's very interesting. Very interesting that it's just a one-off between Marquette and Georgia. But hey, that's how we got there. That's how we get to play them. It'll be a good matchup for us. A good non-conference game for us. Helps build that non-conference schedule, which is looking spectacular if we continue to win. They're projected to finish 12th out of 16 in the SEC, so not exactly the top, but more so the middle, towards the bottom of the SEC. Asa Newell is their best player. He's averages 16 a game, 7 rebounds a game, and 2 blocks. He's their 6'11 guy. He will be the down low issue for us. Tyron Lawrence, though, will be the point guard. He averages 11 points, shoots 45% from 3. So, they've got real talent. They're Georgia, right? The SEC teams have gotten better over the years in basketball. It's no longer just Kentucky. I mean, obviously, John Calipari now at Arkansas, so you can loop them in as well. But they're very much a deeper league. Alabama everyone thinks they may win the national championship, although they did lose this week. But so they're a legit team.
Oh no, I'm sorry. The Houston's in Big 12.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
You're good.
You want to say that again? Because I said it right in the middle of it.
No, you're good. Hold on. So yeah, Alabama. Everyone thinks they're the kind of the favorite to win the national championship, although they did lose this week. So this is a deep league. So them projected to finish 12th. They're certainly a game we should probably win. By the way, on paper, my guess is we're the favorite. But
we are during the ESPN's little percentage thing.
All right, well that's good because usually ESPN doesn't do us any favors. They're not a big fan of the Big East. So
right.
And they do have interest in the SEC. So
literally, quite literally, interest in the SEC. Hey, I mean, like you said, they're not the best team in the SEC. But like you said, also, like you play a lot of good teams a lot of times. You're gonna be like your average of play is gonna be higher than if you were, a better team in a not so good league, right? You just used to seeing good teams all the time more. So
yeah, and having a good non-conference schedule puts you in a place where your resume looks better. Part of the reason I think we didn't make the tournament last year is people looked at our schedule perhaps and said, that their schedule wasn't as good. I also think we need to follow the Big 12 model a bit from last year, where they kind of just stacked the deck, didn't worry about the non-conference and focus on their conference. So we're going a little away from that. But this is more of a traditional approach to making the tournament, right? You play a very good non-conference. Listen, if at the end of the day we come out wins against New Mexico, Georgia, Baylor, Virginia, or Tennessee, whatever, K-State, right? We've got the opportunity to have a real strong resume going into Big East play where we know we're getting good games, right? You look at the league, everybody except for 4 teams is either ranked or have receiving votes or were receiving votes. So you put yourself in a place to be successful, and that's the best we can do. So adding this extra game, despite the fact that we're playing 2 days before, is good. I do like it now. Now that I know they're playing the day before, I like it even better. I think it's a great choice.
And they're just flying in for these games, right? I mean, I'm sure they'll come a little earlier, right, to settle and everything, but I don't know.
They're certainly going to be more tired than we are. We're coming off a rest day, so.
Yeah, but we'll have 2 games compared to their 1.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We're going to be okay. I think ultimately, we are the better team compared to them. We're ranked.
We're ranked. Not. Give us a projection for the weekend, Nick. Of the 3 games, where are we going? What are we getting?
You ready for this? We're going 3-0, baby.
Oh, baby. Look at him. Drinking the Kool-Aid over there.
This is so sweet.
How's it taste? Very, very red.
It tastes like a Baja Blast, baby.
Oh, I see what you did there. I like that. I like your positivity. I'm going to go positive, too. I'm going to go 3-0. I think we beat Baylor in a surprise, and we go out with that momentum, beat Tennessee, and then take the day off and have a nice, restful game where we beat Georgia because we should.
I think we can. I think Baylor is an extremely good team. I think Tennessee is arguably equal or better to. Let me say that again. And Tennessee is also, as good, if not arguably better than them. But I think we're just grittier than them at the end of the day. And I think we're going to come here hungry, right? We have 2 opportunities against 2 ranked opponents, right? We got some buzz, right? Yeah. Everybody's talking about us now. I can see these kids, these boys coming up and just like rising to the occasion in a sense. And just
I can see it.
You know what I mean? Absolutely showing that, like, St. John, we're here. We're here to stay. We're here to play.
Yeah. Listen, I think, like you said, we're not a surprise anymore, right? We're not shocking the world by beating a ranked team. We're a ranked team ourselves. And every once in a while, when you become a ranked team, you got to play like a ranked team and you got to go out and beat another ranked team. And I think we could beat both of these teams. Now, if we do beat both of these teams, by the way, we could find ourselves very high in the rankings after the week is done.
Top 12, maybe even top 10.
Yeah, certainly top 15.
Certainly top 15.
Certainly top 15.
They're both top 15 teams right now.
Yeah. I think we certainly find ourselves somewhere in that range between 10 and 15, which would be phenomenal.
What are we even talking about right now?
The Kool-Aid is so sweet. It's just so tasty. All right. Well, hopefully we have a great trip out there and we come home with 3 more victories. For Tim and Nick, I'm Vincent. Go Johnnies. Keep chasing.